In your video, How to Get 1% Better Each Day, you gave some simple advice to watch, listen, or read for 15 minutes daily. I think that's incredibly important. I try to do that myself. So how has this small daily routine compounded into such a difference maker for you in your own business and life in general?
Yeah. And Jason, it's made all the difference. And the other thing that it's done is I get specific on something I'm trying to learn. Sometimes it's for 1 week. Sometimes it's for a month. And so what I try to do is for instance, right now, I'm all in trying to understand AI and recommendation by AI. So literally what I'm doing is I'm finding the people who are speaking on this in a way. I'm watching everything that Rajiv is doing. I'm watching everything that Jason Pantana is doing. I'm watching the people that are studying this and that this is what they really, really understand. And I'm doing at least 15 minutes a day. I do it in the gym. I do it on my drive to the office. I do it when I first wake up and I'm doing some study time in the beginning of my day. Whatever it is for you, find a way to understand in at least 15 minutes a day for whatever that skill that you're focusing in on for that week or for that month. Every single day that week, stay focused on that.
Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowsky, and welcome to another episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. It's hard to believe that we've already reached the halfway point of 2026, and if you've ever reached that 6-month mark of your business plan and wondered, how can you find that extra fuel and turn on the jets in order to help you finish the calendar year as strong as possible, then this is an episode that you need to listen to. Joining me today is one of the most respected thought leaders in the real estate industry and someone I turn to whenever I need some sound advice and extra real estate motivation. His name is Jimmy Burgess, Chief Coaching Officer for HomeServices of America and the BHHS Network. Jimmy has helped countless agents elevate their businesses through proven strategies, practical coaching, and a relentless focus on what actually moves the needle for your real estate business. And in today's conversation, we're diving into how to perform a meaningful business audit, along with some sound advice and extra tips from Jimmy on how to elevate your real estate business to the next level. I'm always excited to have Jimmy on the podcast with us, so let's get right into the conversation with the man himself, Jimmy Burgess. He is the hardest working man in real estate. I think that's fair to say at this point. I don't know anybody that works as hard as this guy does for as long as this guy does and puts out the incredible content that he does. His name, of course, is Jimmy Burgess. Jimmy, I'm so excited to have you back on. It's been a while. I was saying off camera that I think this is like our 5th time together. But anytime that I can have you on here and speaking to our agents, it's always a win for everybody involved. So how you doing down there?
Man, I've been missing you, brother. I mean, it has been a little while since we've done this.
Yeah.
And I just always love being with you. You know, before we got on camera, I loved just watching, how the work that you've been putting in, some of the work I've been putting in, how it is bringing value to agents. And so, listen, I know doing these things is not easy. I know you're rushing out to get another offer while we're, after we do this. So I just appreciate you taking the time and really investing in helping other agents. And man, just thanks for having me, Jay.
Well, like I said, it's always good to see your face. And since we're at the halfway point of the year already, I mean, I can't believe how fast this year has gone. I wanted to give our agents some food for thought and some tips and pointers that you and I could go over, talk about the midway point, and talk about what agents can do in the second half of the year to really finish the year as strong as they possibly can. So I'm going to kick it off with this. So Jimmy, we're already at the halfway point of the year, and agents are evaluating and assessing their business plans to figure out what went right the first half, what needs some tweaking, and where things officially stand numbers-wise heading into quarter number 3. So looking back on your own real estate career, can you remember a mid-year audit that changed the trajectory of your own business? Did you have the same process halfway through the year? What was it like in your career when selling? How did you assess the midway point?
And let me say this, I didn't always do it this way. Man, I made the mistake. So I learned some of the hard ways and just refined it over those 25 years of sales. And so Jason, I'll tell you what really changed it for me is I have a friend of mine whose son was a college football coach, or still is. He's actually with the Houston Texans now. He's in the pros. But during COVID, I interviewed him, asking him from a standpoint of what is the most important times as a coach. And I thought he would say recruiting. I thought he would say, game planning. And what he told me is he said the best coaches and the true champions, it's the adjustments they make at halftime. It is what do they do to evaluate what worked, what didn't work. And not only do they evaluate what they did that worked and didn't work, what will they do based on the information they have on what happened in the first half of the game to win the second half of the game, because that's when champions really move forward. If you look back historically at any of the champions in the NFL, historically speaking, they win 90% of the second halves during the year that they win a championship. So this is something that is really interesting to me. And so how did I apply that? So what I did, Jason, is I began to start thinking about what can I do to evaluate first and then put into a plan of action into effect for that second half. The first thing I did is I wanted to really get honest about what is it that I spent my time on. So what did I invest my money, my resources, my time, my efforts in? And what were the results? So the first thing I did is I would go back and I would look at all of the listings that were generated in the first half of the year, all of the pending contracts, all of the closings that I had in the first half of the year. Where did they originate from? What is it that actually happened that generated business? And then I wanted to take and go a next step level is, how long did those things have to take? What were the steps in that? In other words, if it was somebody that was a past client, what were the processes I did to generate them to call me again? Did they reach out to me? Did I reach out to them? Was it an email I sent? Was it a postcard? Was it a social media post? How did it originate? And I got really granular on what worked in the first part of the year. And then the second thing I did is what did I spend all of my time and money on? I can remember looking back at one point in my career where I was making a ton of cold calls. I was just calling around to neighbors of new listings. I was calling around to see if someone in a neighborhood was willing to sell. And I thought I was really busy. And a lot of times there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. And then when I did this evaluation, I looked back and I realized that actually over half of my contracts had come from spending time with people that I already knew. It was when I was playing golf with someone that I was a friend with that they asked me about my business, and I mentioned that, hey, it'd be great if you know of anybody, and they sent me somebody. It were the times when I was in a social situation where I was serving with the local PTA, that at the PTA meeting, I had someone mention something. And so what I did is I began to evaluate this at the midway point on what has generated business now. Because listen, here's the thing is, if you go too far back and you evaluate what happened 3 years ago, it can be irrelevant right now. What's been generating business for me or the people that are around me in my office that I can make the adjustments and go into the second half with an executable plan of action that focuses in on those income producing activities. And Jason, when I made those adjustments, and the agents that are making those adjustments right now, they're not only are they going to win the second half of this year, but they're setting the stage to have 2027 and the first part of 2027 be the best first quarter they've had as well. So it's just really evaluating where you are, taking note of it, putting together a plan of action, and executing on it.
And like you had mentioned, it's figuring out what works, because busy work is not necessarily productive work, like you said.
Absolutely.
And right. I know myself. I try and keep track of everything that I do as much as I possibly can. My ROI on those things, like you had talked about. But I do have some blind spots from time to time, and I think agents have blind spots. What are some of the hardest questions agents need to ask themselves, honestly, during their mid-year business audit?
Yeah. Do you do the things because you get results or because it's comfortable for you? Jason, is the biggest thing. And I will tell you, I was working on this morning, and I put together some things because, look, there may be some people that are coming into this, they're not sure what the right question is to ask themselves. And so they just need to take action to start getting some momentum, and then they can adjust. I've always said this. A lot of times there's really two things that you can think about. If we're going to want to not just ask ourselves, but I want to evaluate. I had this, Mike Staver's a great coach. He's working with us, the executive team here at HomeServices. gives me great insights. One of the things that he always talks about is that if we're going to reach a new level or we're going to take off or go to a higher level, he used the example of an airplane. He said there's really two things that affect that. The first is thrust. In other words, the faster you're going and if the wings are positioned correctly, that it will take off. But the second thing is not just the thrust, is the thing that really holds back a lot of times being able to reach new levels is drag. And so the question you have to ask yourself is what is it that I do that doesn't generate results? And in a lot of cases, if you can remove those things, it isn't even that you need more thrust. You just need to refocus what you're doing. And again, I can look back on my career, and you mentioned this when we started. I mean, I've always considered myself somebody that will not be outworked, Mm-hmm. But as I've matured, what I've realized is that it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart. And if you can ask yourself the true questions of, what do I do because it's comfortable? And what do I not do because it's uncomfortable that I should be doing? And I think that's going to give you the answer on where to take some action going forward.
Yeah, I know that there are things that I do. I am very well aware of what I'm uncomfortable with. I mean, starting this podcast was uncomfortable, but you see where it leads to, down the line, and you get better at things. And so I think we judge ourselves and we don't give ourselves enough grace many times to be bad at something before we can be good at something and propel our careers forward. So, one thing that I want to touch upon is assessing your mid-year. If you're not having the first half of the year that you wanted to have, a lot of agents will panic. And they are, if oh my God, I'm well behind my goal in July, and then they start to panic and they think they have to make, that production up very quickly. What do you think the biggest mistake is that agents make in trying to catch up, and what maybe should they do instead?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they try to really focus in on the big goal without breaking it down to daily activities. And so, look, there are certain times when the market's going to be a little more difficult. There's places around the country the market's more difficult, but we can all agree that somebody's having their best year. And so what is it that they're doing? When I look at this and I start breaking down, what is it that I can be doing a little bit different than I've done in the past? And how do I do this? And how do I swallow that big goal or catch up, so to speak? Is that I think about it from a conversations number. This is the way I've always done this is that I've always said, the average for the industry is 50 real estate related conversations. Well, how do you get those conversations? That's the question. And so if you're needing, let's say that your goal was 24 transactions for the year. I'm just making an easy number of 2 a month. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting here at the mid-year and you've only done 6 transactions. So you really need to have 18 if you're going to do and reach your goal. That is ultimately what you need to do financially or you want to do. Then what do? Well, we need to, as we talked about, remove some of the things that are not working and then get really focused and hyper-focused. So when I set out my annual goal of 24 transactions, I typically break it down this way. I understand that 50 real estate related conversations on average in our industry generates 1 transaction. If I'm doing that and I'm saying I want to have 24 transactions, 50 times 24 tells me we're going to need 1,200 real estate related conversations for the year. Now, if I'm at the mid-year and I've not received this and I need 18 transactions, now I can start re-breaking this down. And instead of having to have, I said the 1,200 per year, that's 100 per month. Well, over the next 6 months, in other words, I'm going to need to have 900 conversations. I'm going to need to have that based on 50 to get to those 18 transactions. So I'm going to ramp that up, break it down to a monthly basis. I'm going to see that I need to have 150 per month for these next 6 months. I'm going to break that down that on a weekly basis. If I'm basing it on 4 weeks, then I'm going to need to have somewhere in the neighborhood of around 40 conversations per week, roughly, that I'm going to have. So that's going to break down, in the neighborhood of 8 per day. Now, how am I going to break that down if I'm going to work 5 days? So how am I going to get those? That's where it really focuses in on breaking this down and understanding that the law of averages is going to work out. So you trust the process. I don't know how I'm going to get to the end of the year with that unless I understand that today I had 8 conversations. Tomorrow I have 8 conversations. They start compounding these real estate related conversations. They can come from a couple places. If you're looking to build momentum right now, I'd break it down to really a couple of places. Number one, if you're really wanting to build momentum and you're wanting to make up some time, Become a open house machine. Get in front of where the people are walking in the door as much as possible. You can make that your office for that 2 or 3 hours that you're having those open houses, but it's a way that brings people to you instead of you chasing them. They're walking in the door. The second thing is the unsolicited video CMA. I've talked about this forever. Do one a day. It's an outbound way to generate and provide value. And I promise if you do it consistently every single day, it's going to generate some real estate related conversations. The next step is that we have never had an opportunity that we have right now to be recommended by AI or the algorithm on social media that costs us $0 if we do it correctly, can generate opportunities for us because it's putting our content right in front of the right people. I would go into AI and I would ask it, what's the 100 most asked questions for real estate buyers and sellers in whatever your city is? And then I would answer those. I would actually provide value. And it's going to have 3 audiences on social media. It's going to have the potential buyer or seller that's going to see it, which the algorithm should do its job and put it in front of people. It's going to have the ability to put it in front of people that you're connected with or that have watched your content in the past that maybe they aren't thinking about it, but they would recommend it to someone. And then the third leg of that is it's going to have the ability for AI, based on you answering those questions, to begin to recommend that and put it in front of the potential prospects that maybe you've never talked to before. So those are the 3 things right now to reevaluate, to get back on track, to build some momentum that I would be doing right now, Jason, to really launch yourself into this second half of the year.
Well, I want to touch upon a couple of things that you said there. One is, if you're around long enough in this business, you realize that real estate really is a game of numbers. And you broke it down basically to the nth degree of how many calls do I need to make per day, or how many people do I need to get in front of me per day. It's really easy. The more you do, the more people you connect with, the more business that you're going to do. And you set it up where you're working your way backwards from the beginning of the year down to the daily, and how many people do I need to reach out to. The second part is that AI search. We're going to get into that. And I want to start by touching upon some of the great videos that you have on YouTube, because I'll tell you, I am such a fan of yours when it comes to your video work, the guests that you have on. I really feel like they're invaluable for agents. And I want to touch upon a couple of them and pull out specific pieces that I'd like to talk about with you, if that's okay. So in order to make the most of the second half of the year for our agents, I want to talk about first, and like I said, I'm going to mix and match these. So in your video, how to get 1% better each day, you gave some simple advice to watch, listen, or read for 15 minutes daily. I think that's incredibly important. I try to do that myself. So how has this small daily routine compounded into such a difference maker for you in your own business and life in general?
Yeah. And Jason, it's made all the difference. And the other thing that it's done is I get specific on something I'm trying to learn. Sometimes it's for 1 week. Sometimes it's for a month. And so what I try to do is for instance, right now, I'm all in trying to understand AI and recommendation by AI. So literally what I'm doing is I'm finding the people who are speaking on this in a way. I'm watching everything that Rajiv is doing. I'm watching everything that Jason Pantana is doing. I'm watching the people that are studying this and that this is what they really, really understand. And I'm doing at least 15 minutes a day. I do it in the gym. I do it on my drive to the office. I do it when I first wake up and I'm doing some study time in the beginning of my day. Whatever it is for you, find a way to understand in at least 15 minutes a day for whatever that skill that you're focusing in on for that week or for that month. Every single day that week, stay focused on that. I'll tell you, Jason, this is something I've learned since actually publishing that I've really put into practice. It's one thing to understand and learn it. It's a whole other thing to put it into practice. So what I've done in an adjustment to that since I did that article is that I do 4 days of learning now, 15 to 30 minutes, and then I take every Friday and I take action for 15 to 30 minutes. So in other words, I don't want to just learn it. I want to put it into practice. And I want to learn for 4 days, put into practice for 1 day. So in other words, like right now, I'm learning on AI search. What I'm doing then is I'm taking the AI search that I'm learning about and I'm testing it. I'm running trial reels myself before I ever recommend something to an agent on what they could do. I'm going in with agents that I'm coaching and I'm giving them recommendations, and we're testing these things to see how they result with split testing or with 2 different posts specifically on how to get recommended by AI. So those are the things that I'm doing. Jason, you're the same way as I am. I don't ever want to tell somebody to do something that I haven't first done. This is one of those that I can tell you that specific focus of consistently adding to my understanding of a specific topic, that by the end of the month, I feel like I'm moving myself into a direction where I can be someone that can then teach it or that can execute on it in a way that's higher level than anybody else.
And that's the thing that I love about what you do, because I know you practice what you preach, and especially the AI stuff. We're going to get further into that. But that's where everything is headed. That's where we need to be. And you're solely focused on trying to learn that and make that part of your repertoire, right? You know what you're talking about. You're not just talking about it. You're actually implementing it into your own business. I want to touch upon another video of yours, the 5 brutal truths that I wish I had known sooner. And I love this one personally. You mentioned that being known is often more valuable than being good, which is such a great statement. So can you talk about what you meant by that and how agents can go about getting better at being known and more visible in their own communities?
Yeah, and I think sometimes this is it can be, if it's done incorrectly, cringy, I guess you could say, Jason. It's one of those where I think it makes people uncomfortable because most people are brought up to, and we're taught in school to color inside the lines, to speak when asked a question, to not stand out, to fall in. It's kind of what society teaches us. And in reality, it's the opposite of what we need to be doing in our business. And so when I'm thinking about this, I can tell you, I can think in my head right now, I can think of 2 specific agents in our office who know everything possible about how to get a home ready to go on the market. They know everything about pricing and valuation in our marketplace, and they don't do any business. And the bottom line is that they, kind of going back to what I was just talking about, they learn everything, but they never practice it. And they never share it in a way where other people recognize them as the expert. So what does this look like? There's a number of different ways. There's never been a time where you can be recognized better or you can provide more value than doing and utilizing social media. YouTube is the absolute game changer for those that are consistent with this. Jason, I was out in Las Vegas, and golly, I'm drawing a total blank now. I did an interview with her, so it's going to be a video that's coming up. This is someone who has been in the business for, I think she said 25 plus years. She is at a point where she knows that everything she's done in the past is not necessarily going to get her, that's got her here, is going to get her there. Mm-hmm. So 18 months ago, she decided to dominate a specific neighborhood, and she decided to utilize YouTube for this. Now, her comment was that she was mature enough in her business to understand that it wasn't about the things of numbers of views. It was about the quality of views. So she didn't get caught up in all of the things of, well, this only got 90 views. It got 90 views by the ideal people. And what's happened is that in the last 18 months, from her starting doing 1 video a week about her specific neighborhood, the amenities, specific floor plans, what's coming, activities, past sales, future opportunities, all of these things that she's done on videos, she's generated over $200,000 worth of GCI. Wow. By getting known as the expert in that neighborhood through YouTube. So utilizing social media, utilizing the opportunity with YouTube, and then also don't sleep on direct mail and email marketing to those areas. Those are opportunities that also create a great way for you to become known as not just the resource, but the source of information for that specific neighborhood in that area. And look, here's the thing. I mentioned those 2 people that I know who are probably some of the best at staging a home, someone who understands pricing better than anybody that aren't doing any business. I will tell you, I also, on the flip side of that, know a couple of agents that are killing it in this business that really are probably not the best agents. They just have the most exposure, and they're recognized by the most people, generating the most opportunities, and they continue to get better because of the reps they're doing. But ultimately, it used to be the most professional person wins. Right now, it's the person who is known the most gets the most opportunities and ultimately wins the most.
I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And I think that's a universal law nationwide, Jimmy, that,
Absolutely.
Just because you're known does not mean that you're at the best at what you do. Like you said,
Correct.
there are some agents that I know that are just top notch, and you just wonder, how are they not doing more business? And it's because of this factor. And I want to touch upon YouTube real quick, because actually Noah in the back here and I were talking about this prior to coming on, that YouTube is kind of like my white whale and my dragon that I'm trying to slay right now. And for that reason, and we had Colby Anderson on. Obviously, you know Colby a couple weeks ago, and I just fell in love with the community videos that he was doing, and I'm like, that's my template. That's what I need to do, and so I'm working on constructing those to put on YouTube to get the right viewership, get the right people in that area looking at my videos to drive my business. I feel like there's so many agents that are not utilizing YouTube in the right way, and I think that's a space beyond AI where I feel like a lot of agents are leaving a lot of meat on the bone. Would you agree with that?
Not only that, Jason, it is now YouTube is the most number one quoted by AI. It's the reference point for AI where it's finding the answers. So I'll use Colby, for example. Colby's a great example of this. He is not just doing it for YouTube as well. He's taking the same video and he's clipping it and putting it on TikTok, on Instagram. I don't know if he told you this, Jason, because I haven't seen that interview yet. But when Colby was first started doing videos, he and I were talking about this, and I was like, man, you got to get on TikTok. He's like, I wasn't even on social media 18 months ago. I'm not getting on TikTok. The Chinese, they want my information. I was like, I'm telling you, man, they don't care about you. But just get on there. It has the best AI algorithm search that will put you in front of the right people. He did that. He took one of those community videos, he put it on, and on TikTok. And that video in the first 9 days generated over 100,000 views.
It's incredible.
On a specific neighborhood. When we broke that down, that gave him the opportunity. And we took the average watch time on the TikTok video times the number of views in those first 9 days. It was for every second of real time, he was getting a second and a half of people watching him talk about that neighborhood and talk about the amenities and the opportunities for real estate in that neighborhood. So that is what we would call operating and marketing faster than the speed of time. And here's the thing. He spent about $300 getting that video shot. You could probably get it cheaper than that. We're a pretty expensive area on this 90-second video he did. But that generated literally that many opportunities and views that set him apart in that neighborhood that will continue to give him value going forward. Again, it's going back to who knows. It's not just about what you know. It's who knows you and references you as the person who is the person they see as the resource. Colby's a perfect example of that. I would suggest going and following him on social media, following what he's doing on YouTube, because it's going to give opportunity for people to see people that are doing it the right way right now as well.
He does an amazing, amazing job. And like you said, I'm thinking about the investment. That is a relatively incredibly small investment to get that kind of return. And that's the power of social media. That's the power of YouTube. We need to take advantage of these things where we can. So, all right. So I saved this towards the end, but you have referenced this several times. We're going to dive into AI search a little bit. And so I think in the AI space, I know that agents get tired of talking about AI all the time now, but I think there is one topic that's incredibly important, and that's how do you get recommended by AI online. So in your video, 3 skills most agents learn too late. The third skill that you talked about is the importance of being recommended by AI and how to go about doing that. So Jimmy, what are some simple steps that agents can take today to show up on an AI recommended search in their area of expertise?
Yeah, and let me give you a couple of reference points here also, Jason, because I think it's important from that standpoint, because this is something that is going to, you can improve it very quickly, but it's the compounding effect of the consistency of what we're going to talk about. The first thing is to start off with your your bios on all of your social media, on everything you're doing on YouTube, on your website, and have some consistency that they're written correctly. I don't know the name of it, but I know that, for instance, when we're looking at some of this stuff, Rajiv has written like a bio, where you can just plug in the information. It'll ask you a series of questions and you can get that. Go search on Rajiv for that. I think it's bio, it's the AI bio something.
I've used that. I've used that myself, actually. It's the low-hanging fruit,
He takes the question marks out. If you're not sure, though, I'm going to give you a tool that I've been utilizing. I used it this morning. It's called promptcowboy.ai. Promptcowboy.ai and there's a free version there where you can come in and you put in and tell it what you'd like to have as far as you'd like to prompt to get the best information. So you could simply go in there and say, I'm trying to be recommended as a real estate agent by AI. I want to organize my bios on my social media platforms as well as on my website, as well as on Zillow, Realtor.com, whatever you want to do. And then just say, can you write me a prompt that will help me get the best output possible to position myself to be the agent that is recommended in my local area, whatever, and you give that name of that area. It will give you a detailed prompt that then you can take and you can drop into ChatGPT, Claude, whatever you're using, and it will absolutely improve what you're doing. Ask it for specifics on your website, on the specifics for Instagram, all of those different things so that it will make it where it's uniform across because then what it does, it takes the question marks and it gives clarity to AI on who you are and what you do in a way that helps it recommend you. Second part of this, you want to start creating as much content as you can, answering those questions we talked about earlier that buyers and sellers have. AI is looking for the answers to questions that are asked. So if you can use ask a report. Haro, help a reporter out. There is different sites out there. You can just go into Google and ask it, what are the questions that people are asking? You can ask AI, what are the 100 most likely asked questions by buyers and sellers in your marketplace? Take those and begin to answer those questions. Think about it. You want them as sound bites. And so you may even go into AI and ask it to say, how do I answer this question and produce content that will help you recommend me for anyone that asks this question in my local market of whatever your local market is. That will get you in the process of putting out content that will help you be recommended as well. The other thing is notice some of the sites that are being utilized. There's specific sites. For whatever reason, do the research, go into your local market and make sure that you're asking AI. And I would do this not on yours because they want to make you feel good. A friend of mine, that Doug Edrington out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, asked AI, said, "Hey, who's the best agent in Chattanooga?" You are, Doug. It wants to be his friend. Then he goes on his wife's and asks it. And he's not even on the list when he started. But what he did is he took the list and noticed the agents it mentioned, and it's like a bibliography. It tells you which sites it's quoting and what it said that gave it the ability to recommend those agents. He then went on to those sites, which some of those sites he wasn't even on, and he prepared it in a way that it began to recommend him. Within 1 week, he became recommended. So notice, what is AI and who is it recommending in your local market? What is it that they said they did that AI is putting back? What sites is it quoting? So begin to get active on those places and you're going to position yourself to be recommended.
You know what's so funny about that? You are so right. When I search myself for 5 agents in my area that, give me 5 superstar agents in the Bluebell area. And, 5 names other than myself will come up and I'm like, what is going on? And then AI tries to be my friend and make sure to console me and tell me I'm doing everything right, but you might think about doing X, Y, Z. So right. There are steps that we can take. You talk about Fast Expert, your home lights, all these different bios that you can update, profiles that you can get on that will improve your AI search. And the funny thing is, I got asked to be on a podcast last week. And had to check to make sure that it was legitimate because I had never heard of this person before. And I reached back out to their booking person or secretary or whoever it was. And I said, how did you find me? And they said, point blank, AI search. And part of what I do as a podcaster is with my bios, I'm not putting only out there as a real estate agent, but I'm also putting myself out there as a podcaster. And that is how they found me. And now I'm booked to go on this potential real estate podcast, which I found, fascinating. It works. So you have to get ahead of the curve with this stuff and make sure that you're taking the steps. Like you said, the importance of this is, yesterday was Google search, not to say that isn't important, but today and tomorrow, it's going to be AI search. And so is there anything you want to add to that before we move on, Jimmy?
Yeah, just consistently be adding those to those things. We talked about the foundational things here, but be watching what is it that the experts are saying? What are the trends that are happening? Consistently be going back and seeing if you're still recommended or if there are new sites that are popping up. What is it that you can do? And I would get more specific, Jason, too, is like, it's one thing to be recommended in the Bluebell area, but it would be totally different for whatever your farm area is to be recommended in that farm. So I would even get a little more granular on just the wide area of just the area you're in. And what are the specific niches that you can be recommended for? If you service first-time home buyers, if you help transferring, military folks and you specialize in VA loans, whatever it is, whatever specialty you have, implement that, because it's way easier to get recommended for specific things than it is the general area as well.
That's some great advice right there. So get granular is the point. So, all right. So I want to reference one of your last videos that we're going to reference today, and that is 5 visibility strategies that help agents become the only name that prospects remember. And I love this video as well. And in that video, you mentioned the 393 program. So I want to touch upon this with you. And can you explain what that is and how that can make a huge difference in an agent's business moving forward?
Yeah, Jason, we, as we were talking and you mentioned it as well that you do it, I really like to know the numbers. I mean, I think anything that we inspect, we can expect to get better. And so as I begin to inspect, what is the results of spending time with people that already know, like, and trust us? In other words, what is it that we can expect if we invest the time, the money to have coffee meetings, lunch meetings with past clients, sphere of influence, people that we're deepening relationships with as far as a result? And after we did this with a number of agents across the country, what did that average out to? And what we found is that on average, for every 9 of these lunch, breakfast, coffee meetings that you have with someone, not based on you asking them for business, but just getting and building the relationship, we found that you on average could expect after every 9 that you would get 1 really solid referral to your business. And so based on that information, and I'm going to go into this basically saying the way that we did this. And let me give you the formula first. So we thought, okay, if we're wanting to generate over the next 9 weeks, three really strong referrals, then we needed to have 3 of these meetings per week for 9 weeks. And we're going to generate 3 prospective referrals on average. Again, we're doing this consistently over the next 9 weeks. This is a stretch. Look, I think you can do anything over a short period of time. So I'm a big believer in not saying I'm going to do this forever. I'm going to do this for the next 9 weeks. I'm going to really be focused in on this because these referrals are typically going to be high quality. They're going to be ready to take action, or they're going to be someone that we don't have to prove ourselves to because of the referral and the recommendation. We already have the recommendation as at a place where they trust us. So what we did on this is these are what these meetings look like. We went into that and just asking them how the family is, what's going on in their life. And then there was a specific question that we always wanted to ask, and that was, what is it that I can do to support you, your family, whatever it is you love, your business right now that would be helpful for you? Now, this may be that you're, and if they don't say, well, nothing right now, it'd be like, could I write a review for your business? Is there an organization that you really love that maybe I should know a little more about? What's going on with your kids, and what's happening with them? Figuring out how we can support them and then taking action on it. That's going to trigger the law of reciprocity. And by asking that question, the natural next question they're going to ask to you is, well, what can I do to help you? And there's going to be 2 things specifically we're going to do there. We're going to say, well, listen, if you haven't had a chance to give us a review, I can send you a link. I'd love for you to do that. It'd be super helpful. But obviously, our reputation is built online these days. And so we're in the review economy. It'd be great if you could do that. But more importantly than that, I just want to thank you in advance because I believe that in the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear of somebody that's getting ready to sell their house. They've got a job transfer. They're wanting to, they found out they're going to have a new baby and they need a bigger house. Or you're going to find somebody that is talking about buying a house in the area. Maybe it's somebody that's transferring in to work with your company or something along those lines. I just want to thank you in advance for doing a text introduction between me and that person so that I would have the ability to earn their business. That'd be the best thing you could do for me is just a text introduction to anybody you hear that's thinking about buying and selling. And I would greatly appreciate that. And what we've done is we've been very specific. A text introduction. There's a difference in them saying, you ought to call Jason, than them texting you and that prospect say, I want to make an introduction. And by doing so, now you've got the ability to follow up with those folks and say, hey, thanks, Jason. Really appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure that any friend of Jason is a friend of mine. And I'll just know that I'd love to see if there's any way I can support you and treat you like family. That will go a long way in generating these. And what we've found is that when we do this for 9 weeks straight, we do 3 a week for 9 weeks, we are on average generating 3 potential very strong referrals that are going to lead to business over the next 60, 90 days as well. So that's the process, Jason. And it's a way to really build some momentum with the people that already know, like, and trust you.
It's such a simple thing to do, right? It's just actionable steps that you need to take. And like we talk about that game of numbers, but I love the law of reciprocity. And that is so true. If somebody said that to me, what can I do to promote your business? Of course, I'm going to ask them back, what can I do to support you? It's such a simple thing, but such a powerful thing that you can do when you meet up with people. I absolutely love that. So that's why I wanted to touch upon that. Heading into the second half of the year, this is something that every agent out there can do. It's easy. Start setting up those appointments with your clients. Take them out somewhere and use this technique. It's absolutely awesome. All right, so a couple questions I want to do to finish up this podcast with you. Now, I did not send this to you in advance, all right? So this is going to be off the cuff, and I wanted this to be spontaneous. What is the one tool, app, or skill that real estate agents need to take advantage of for their business right now?
All right, let me give you skill. Let me do all of them. Let me do skill and app.
All right.
Skill is an understanding of how to utilize AI to maximize the opportunities to have conversations. That could be getting recommended. That could be doing social media better. This is the blue ocean of opportunity that is out there right now that is only going to continue to be enhanced as we go forward. You know, you hear the typical, everybody says it, I've said it so many times. AI is not going to replace, real estate agents, but the people that use it are going to be the ones that absolutely outpace those that don't. That's absolutely true. But let me just say this. I believe it's exponentially important right now for you to understand how to utilize AI in your business. How do you utilize it to prepare your MLS descriptions? How do you utilize it to get recommended by AI? How do you utilize it to help you put together systems that once a listing comes in, this is the checklist that you utilize? All of those things are critically important. So that's the skill I would develop is how do I utilize AI at its highest level in my business? The app that I love right now, and I've used this forever, is I love BombBomb.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't know what BombBomb is, it is a tool that actually gives you the ability to record a message that is embedded into your email where it's a video message. You can use it on text. You can use it in these. It personalizes your messaging. And let me just say this. People don't do business with emails. They don't do business with text. They do business with people. And the more you can personalize it, when I send a video email, and they can see the passion that I have for whatever it is I'm talking about, or the excitement I have about this new listing, or whatever it is, or I can showcase something to them in a way that's unique and stands out from everybody else, that is still the best way to be memorable and also to set yourself apart from other agents. So look, it's been that way for 5 years. I think I looked, Jason, the other day. I think I've got over 3,000 video emails that I've sent. And I continue to do it on a daily basis. It is the best tool still, in my opinion, to personalize in an AI world, personalize our messaging, personalize our relationships, and really take us to a next level of building those deeper relationships that lead to more business.
I want to give a shout out to my guy down in Ocean City, Brian Logue. He sends out fantastic BombBomb videos that are just, they're amazing. He does a great job. He's gotten so good at it. Market updates, just personal emails. It like you said, it's personalizing something. It's not just so sterile as to be just a text message. I know me personally, how I utilize BombBomb is with every single offer, and I mean every single offer I send out representing a buyer, I put a video message to the other agents potentially that I would be working with on the other end, give a quick synopsis of what that offer is going to look like, and just say, hey, listen, I'm looking forward to working with you. I cannot tell you how many responses I have gotten from doing that from other agents. Even if I don't get the property, they still tell me how much they love the video aspect of making that offer with the video that breaks down everything within that offer. It's almost like a cover sheet. I have the cover sheet below, but I have the video above. And that goes a huge way to helping my clients stand out and actually win out when I'm actually submitting an offer. So last,
can I give you one step
go
with
ahead.
that?
Yeah.
Let me give you something that I've utilized over the years, and it's been super effective, is that I will include in that, or the first call that I make when I know I'm going to get an offer with that agent. And I will say this, I will say, hey, there's going to be one co-broke this year that's your favorite person you worked with. It was the smoothest transaction. It was the one where the person on the other side, in this case me, didn't let emotion overrun, and understood that we both have to represent our clients, but we are both working with a seller that wants to sell and a buyer that wants to buy, and we're going to do our best to not get in the way of that. I want this to be the transaction that at the end of the year, you look back and I was the favorite agent you had to work with. I'm going to send you this offer in just a little bit. Just know if you've got any questions, let me know. Any way I can bring clarity. And hopefully this is one where we can find the win-win for both your seller and my buyer in a way that helps us both ultimately do our job in the best way possible. And while just framing it that way, where you're taking the tension out of it, you're doing these things. Then when we have those tough conversations, it's like, remember when I talked about we're going to take the emotion out? I'm going to tone myself down here. I just want to, obviously, I'm representing my buyer. Here's the way they see it. And I want to give you the information in the best way possible that hopefully helps you present it to your seller in a way that they can understand why the buyer is asking for this or is including this. And then maybe we can find a common solution here where everybody gets what they ultimately want, which is a buy and a sale on this property. Those are some things we can do that really start building those relationships with agents. We need other agents more than we ever have right now, especially with the transactions being a little more difficult, to be working together instead of against each other in these transactions. And that's something I kind of do in that situation you're talking about to really start bridging that relationship with the other agents early on in that process.
It's such a differentiator. You're setting the expectation that you're going to be the most professional agent that they're going to work with. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. When all things are equal, who are they going to choose? They're going to recommend the agent that can get them to the finish line, right? So, all right. So very last question here. What is the best advice anybody gave you in your real estate career?
Let me think about this because I've got a couple that come to mind immediately. I want to think about the best one in particular. I'll tell you what the best one was. Early on in my career, I had where I was having a struggle where I'd had a series of about 2 or 3 different transactions that fell apart at the last minute. And as I evaluated how I reacted to those, it stopped my momentum because I just continued to beat myself up. I wondered if I should even be in this business. And I had an agent / coach for me, mentor for me, that came to me and said, you have to focus more on the process than the results. And when you focus on the process, you understand that it's just part of the deal. He used the example of, not to get too, but I don't know the story. Great. It's a biblical story of the sowing and reaping. Mm-hmm. And he said the story of the sower and the reaper basically says that the person who sows, their job is to throw the seeds out. They have to understand that a certain number of those seeds are going to be on hard ground and the birds are going to eat them. And when that happens, that may be the time that you have something that is ready and you just know that they're going to list with you and they list with somebody else. And when that happens, you just have to say, oh, that's the birds. And then there's going to be times where you're going to plant some seeds. It's going to sprout up. You're going to get real excited and it's going to get choked out by the briars and the weeds. And it's just absolutely not going to make it for whatever reason. And you have to, when those things happen, when things start going, you got an offer that you know you're going to be able to put together and it just doesn't work out. You have to, when that happens, say, oh, that's just part of those that are going to get choked out and they're going to die in the sun or by the weeds and the briars. But then in the story, there is a time where because you're constantly sowing seed, that the person who is sowing the seed throws it into an area that gets not just a result, but gets a 50 to 100-fold result of the seeds that were planted. If you trust the process and you understand that, yes, there are going to be those times when things aren't going to go your way, when you needed that transaction and it doesn't close at the end, if you'll just keep sowing the seed, ultimately, you're going to have a season in your business where you're going to reap a harvest that is much more than the work you're doing. But it is a process, and you have to understand that they don't come separately, they come together. And that every single rose that's out there has thorns. You just have to continuously not focus in on the results, but focus in on the fact that your job is to be out there sowing the seeds, giving value, putting those people in position to make decisions that are best for them. And ultimately, everything else is going to take care of itself.
Man, I knew you would have some kind of story that would be top-notch, great advice for an agent.
I could have had something better, But...
Well, listen, that was spectacular. I just remember... someone told me very early in my career, and I think it's the best advice. We talk about being uncomfortable. I was just beginning my career, had no clue what I was doing. I was afraid that if my clients wanted to write an offer, I wouldn't know what I was doing, and I was begging them not to like a property so I wouldn't have to put myself in that uncomfortable position to actually write something. And an agent came up to me and said, how you doing in your business? What are you working on? And I would say, I'm doing this and I'm getting this mailer out. And he could see right through me and said, no. You learn by doing. So just get out there and do it. And that was the best. To this day, I still remember that advice. It's the best advice that anybody ever gave me. And when I think about starting something new and I get, a little, not scared, but a little, I guess, apprehensive about something, I realize that everybody had to start in the same position that I'm in. And that, give yourself a little time to learn a new skill and you'll be a better person for it. So that was the best advice that I ever got in my real estate career. So anyway, Jimmy, I'm going to let you go, man. I love seeing you. I love talking to you. And I hope to see you down at Summit this year. I'm going to be down there at the Breakers. That's right around the corner for you. That's like a hop, skip, and a jump for you, right? So I'll see you down there very, very soon. And I always appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I know how busy you are. We always appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jason, for everything you're doing, not just with the podcast, but for the industry as a whole. Really, truly do appreciate you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Right back at you. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you soon. That's it for the podcast this week. I'd like to thank Jimmy Burgess, as always, for joining us for this episode. We will be back in a couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to the podcast yet or checked us out on YouTube, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowsky saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.